They smiled at your face while sharpening the knife for your back. You offered trust and they saw only opportunity. You spoke of loyalty, and they heard only the rattling of chains they intended to break. This is the inevitable fate of the good man in a world that is not good. You have been disrespected, and you believe it is an insult to be endured. But what if it is something else entirely? A question being asked of you, and your entire future depends on the answer. The common response, the idealist response to an act of disrespect, is a masterpiece of self-destruction, painted with the noble colors of virtue and reason. It is the predictable, pitiable path that ensures your own ruin. When the slight occurs, your first instinct is to retreat into the fortress of your own morality. You tell yourself it is a small thing, a misunderstanding. You choose to ignore it, believing that magnanimity is a sign of strength. But what you broadcast as patience, the world perceives as cowardice. You are teaching them that your boundaries are merely suggestions, lines drawn in sand, waiting for the tide of their ambition to wash them away. This inaction is not a strategy, it is a silent surrender. You hope the problem will vanish, yet you are merely nourishing a serpent in your own court. Each ignored transgression is another ounce of poison it accumulates, waiting for the moment to strike with lethal certainty. Or perhaps you choose a different path, the path of emotion. You answer the disrespect with a flash of anger or a display of wounded pride. You raise your voice, you make demands, you reveal your inner turmoil for all to see. You feel righteous in this moment, believing you have shown them your passion and your non-negotiable honor. But in the cold calculus of power, you have done the opposite. You have handed your enemy a map to your soul. You have revealed the levers that move you, the buttons that can be pushed to distract you, to anger you, to make you predictable. A true strategist watches your emotional outburst not with fear, but with the focused curiosity of a scholar. They are taking notes. They now understand precisely how to unbalance you before the real battle even begins. Your rage is not a weapon, it is a confession of your powerlessness. It is the tantrum of a king who can feel his throne cracking beneath him, a desperate noise to mask the terrifying silence of his authority's decay. Then there is the most tragically naive response of all, the appeal to fairness. You attempt to reason with the one who has slighted you. You invoke shared values, a common history, the sacred laws of decency and mutual respect. You believe that if you can just explain your position logically, they will surely understand and recant. You are attempting to play a game of chess with an opponent who is only interested in overturning the board. You speak of rules to someone who sees rules as cages for weaker men. This appeal is based on the fatal assumption that others operate from the same moral framework as you do, that they want what is fair. This is a delusion. As Machiavelli observed, men are driven by self-interest. They are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous. Your appeal to their better nature is a prayer whispered into a hurricane. They do not want fairness, they want an advantage, and by showing them that you are willing to negotiate the terms of your own respect, you have already given them that advantage. You have shown them that your power is not inherent, but is subject to appeal, debate, and ultimately to their approval. This is the ruin of the idealist, a man who insists on seeing the world as it should be, and is therefore perpetually victimized by the world as it is. He is broken not by the cruelty of others, but by his own refusal to accept the fundamental nature of man. But there is another way, a more realistic path, a path paved not with hopeful illusions, but with the unyielding stones of pragmatic truth. This is the path of the prince. To the prince, disrespect is never a personal insult. It is a political maneuver. It is a probe, an instrument sent out by a rival to measure the depth of your power, the readiness of your defenses, and the strength of your will. It is a question asked in the language of action. Are you still worthy of your position? Do you still possess the strength to hold what is yours, or has the time come for me to take it from you? To ignore this question, or to answer it with emotional noise, is to answer in the affirmative for your own downfall. Machiavelli is not a teacher of evil, he is a teacher of reality. He wrote that a prince who wishes to maintain his rule must learn how not to be good. This is the cornerstone of all strategy. You must unlearn the hopeful platitudes that have made you vulnerable. You must understand that the world of power is a theater of appearances, but the consequences are brutally real. The first step is to reframe the event. It is not about your feelings, it is about your authority. Your objective is not to heal a wounded ego, but to surgically remove a threat to the stability of your state, be it your company, your family, or your own sovereign reputation. The prince understands that true power does not reside in virtue. It resides in the ability to use both virtue and vice as tools, applied with precision to achieve a specific end. The observation of human nature, in its most raw and unfiltered form, is the prince's primary weapon. He knows that men are fickle. They will follow you out of love or admiration, but these are unreliable bonds, easily broken the moment it serves their interest to do so. Therefore, a foundation built on affection is a foundation built on quicksand. The idealist seeks to be loved and respected. The prince understands that when love fails, another, more permanent force must be ready to take its place. For love is a bond of obligation, which men, being wicked, break when it is to their advantage to do so. But fear is held by a dread of punishment which never fails. Comment: power respects power to understand this truth, and subscribe for the coming lessons on the maintenance of the state. You have now accepted the first, most difficult truth, that your good intentions are a liability, and that the world is a chessboard, not a fellowship. But a diagnosis of the disease is not the cure. To simply acknowledge the brutal nature of reality is to become a cynic, a passive observer of your own decline. The prince is not a cynic. He is a physician of the state, a master of remedies. To answer the question posed by an act of disrespect, you must move beyond philosophy and acquire the instruments of power. These are not weapons of anger, but tools of political architecture designed to dismantle threats and fortify your dominion. The first and most vital of these instruments is the understanding that you cannot face every challenge with the same face. You must possess a profound duality, the terrible synthesis of the beast and the man. You must become both the lion and the fox. The lion is pure, terrifying force. It represents overwhelming strength, the capacity to shatter opposition through sheer intimidation and decisive violence. The lion does not negotiate with wolves, it scatters them. The lion's roar is a promise of annihilation, a demonstration of power so absolute that it discourages future challenges before they are even conceived. When disrespect is overt, public, and a direct challenge to your sovereignty, a subordinate who openly defies you, a rival who brazenly encroaches on your territory, you must become the lion. To hesitate is to signal that your roar is hollow. The response must be immediate, disproportionate, and final. It is a spectacle of force designed to terrify not only the target, but more importantly, all who are watching. They must walk away from the encounter with a singular, unshakable conviction that to challenge you is to invite their own destruction. This is the lion's purpose: to establish boundaries written in fire, to make the cost of transgression so high that only a fool would dare to pay it. But to be only the lion is to be a magnificent, predictable beast. Your strength becomes your weakness. Your movements are loud, your intentions are clear, and you are easily lured into traps. The world of men is rife with snares, with veiled insults masquerading as compliments, with passive aggression disguised as incompetence, with loyalty that is merely a mask for espionage. Against these threats, the lion's roar is useless, its strength is a liability. Here, you must become the fox. The fox is the master of cunning, the embodiment of strategic subtlety. The fox does not confront the trap. It recognizes it from a distance. It understands the hidden mechanics of human interaction. It can sense the faint scent of deceit in a flattering word. It can see the shadow of ambition behind a smiling face. When disrespect is subtle, a backhanded compliment, a deliberate oversight, a rumor whispered in the corridors, the fox does not roar in anger. That would be an admission that the subtle poison has worked. Instead, the fox observes. It gathers information. It feigns ignorance while mapping the enemy's network of intrigue. The fox's response is never direct. It is an elegant turning of the tables, a quiet repositioning of the pieces on the board, until the trapper finds himself caught in his own snare. The fox does not crush its enemies. It makes their own ambitions the instruments of their undoing. It is the quiet word that exposes a conspiracy, the strategic leak of information that ruins a rival's reputation, the patient waiting for the perfect moment to withdraw support, causing a fragile alliance to collapse. The prince must know when to unleash the awe-inspiring violence of the lion and when to employ the invisible, devastating cunning of the fox. The true art is in the diagnosis. To mistake a direct assault for a subtle trap is to be outmaneuvered while you are busy plotting. To mistake a clever snare for an open challenge is to exhaust your strength-fighting shadows, appearing to all as a paranoid tyrant. Once you have determined the nature of the threat, you must choose the appropriate form of correction. And this leads to the second pillar of control, a concept so chillingly pragmatic that centuries of idealists have tried to ignore it: the proper application of cruelty. Machiavelli makes a crucial distinction between cruelties well used and badly used. For the prince, cruelty is not a matter of temperament. It is a surgical tool. Well-used cruelties are those that are committed all at once, in a single concentrated act, to secure one's position and eliminate a threat. The shock is profound, the lesson is indelible, but then it is over. The initial act of severity is immediately followed by a return to stability and even by the distribution of benefits. The purpose is to perform a necessary painful surgery on the body politic and then to allow it to heal. The memory of that one terrible, swift action is enough to ensure obedience and order for a long time to come, because it establishes the absolute, non-negotiable consequence of defiance. It is a lesson that needs to be taught only once. Badly used cruelties, in contrast, are the hallmark of the weak and insecure ruler. They are small, hesitant, and repeated over time. They are the death by 1,000 cuts. Instead of one decisive blow, the insecure leader offers a series of petty punishments, constant humiliations, and lingering threats. This does not instill the healthy fear that maintains order. It cultivates a festering, corrosive hatred. The subjects are never allowed to feel secure. They live in a state of perpetual anxiety, never knowing when the next arbitrary punishment will fall. This prolonged suffering does not pacify them, it radicalizes them. It turns cowards into conspirators and transforms silent resentment into open rebellion. A response to disrespect that involves a prolonged campaign of passive aggression, public shaming, or gradual exclusion is a badly used cruelty. You are not solving the problem. You are creating a martyr and breeding a generation of enemies who are simply waiting for you to show a moment of weakness. The prince understands this. His response to an affront is a lightning strike, not a lingering storm. It is a singular event, shocking and absolute, from which he can then pivot to magnanimity, appearing all the more merciful in the aftermath of his own calculated tempest. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, the prince must understand that he is always on a stage. His every action is a performance for an audience. This is the third pillar, the mastery of appearances. Machiavelli famously stated that men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. The inner reality of your strategic calculations must be masked by an external facade of unwavering virtue. When you act as the lion, crushing an opponent, you must not appear to be a bloodthirsty tyrant. The act must be framed as a regrettable but necessary measure to preserve order and justice for the good of all. You are not acting out of personal vengeance, but as the solemn guardian of stability. When you move as the fox, dismantling a rival through cunning, you must not appear to be a treacherous schemer. Your victory must seem to be the natural outcome of your opponent's own folly, an unfortunate consequence of their own poor character. You must cultivate a public reputation for being merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and even religious. These qualities are your shield. The masses who judge by what they see will rally to your side. They will forgive your occasional necessary acts of severity because they believe in your fundamental goodness. This creates a powerful dissonance in the minds of your enemies. They have felt the cold steel of your true nature, but they see the world celebrating your benevolence. They are isolated, their accusations dismissed as the bitter rantings of the fallen. This is the ultimate checkmate. The fox diagnoses the threat, the lion delivers the single well-used blow, and the entire theatre of action is curated through the mastery of appearances to reinforce your virtuous reputation while solidifying your absolute control. These are not disparate tactics, they are an integrated system, a political engine for transforming an act of defiance into an affirmation of your enduring dominion. You have acquired the instruments of the lion and the fox. You understand the chilling calculus of well-used cruelty and the necessity of a virtuous public image, but an instrument is useless in a hand that trembles. A blueprint is meaningless to an architect who fears the height of his own creation. The most formidable fortress you must conquer is not an enemy citadel, but the territory of your own mind. Before you can command the world, you must win the war within yourself. This is the first and final victory. It is the internal coronation that precedes any worldly dominion. Your mind must be reforged in a crucible of absolute realism, purged of the sentimental dross that has been mistaken for wisdom. You must learn to silence the siren song of conventional morality, that sweet, intoxicating melody that has guided countless noble ships onto the rocks of ruin. This internal war is a battle against your own programming. Society has taught you that hesitation is a sign of thoughtfulness, that guilt is the companion of conscience, and that to cause pain is an intrinsic evil. These are the ethics of the herd, designed to ensure its collective survival through mutual submission. They are not the ethics of the shepherd, who must at times be cruel to the few to protect the many. The mind of the prince must become a cold, sterile operating theatre. When a limb is gangrenous, the surgeon does not weep over its loss. He performs the amputation with unflinching precision to save the body. Disrespect is a form of gangrene. It is a sickness that, if left untreated, will spread through the entire organism of your authority until all is lost. Your hesitation, your guilt, your reluctance to act, these are the emotional infections that will stay your hand and doom the patient. You must therefore achieve a state of sublime detachment, viewing the landscape of power not with the impassioned eyes of a participant, but with the cool, diagnostic gaze of a physician. Your personal feelings are irrelevant. The opinions of others are merely data points. The only question that matters is what is necessary. To achieve this clarity is to embrace a profound solitude. The prince stands alone, for his perspective is one that cannot be shared. He sees the hidden gears of human motivation, the raw self-interest beneath the veneer of civility. He hears the unspoken threats in diplomatic language and sees the strategic calculations behind acts of charity. To see the world with this level of clarity means you can never again return to the comfortable illusion of simple trust and shared ideals. This is the price of vision. The first victory, then, is over your own need for moral comfort and the approval of others. You must become your own supreme judge, answering only to the iron laws of necessity and consequence. Your conscience is not a guide, it is an obstacle to be overcome. The true measure of your reign will not be your good intentions, but your lasting results. It will be the order you create, the stability you enforce, the state you build, and if that construction requires you to perform deeds that would shatter a lesser man, then that is the burden you must be strong enough to bear. Once you have mastered the internal realm, you can begin to orchestrate the external theater of power. This brings you to the great dilemma that has paralyzed lesser men for centuries. Is it better to be loved or to be feared? The idealist, of course, chooses love. He believes a bond of affection is the strongest foundation for loyalty. But Machiavelli, the ultimate realist, dismisses this as a dangerous fantasy. Love, he explains, is an emotional transaction, a bond of obligation held in place by the fickle gratitude of men. And since men are inherently self-interested, they will break that bond the moment it conflicts with their own advantage. Loyalty born of love is conditional. It is a fair-weather allegiance that evaporates in the first storm. To build your power on the love of others is to build a castle on the seashore, beautiful and admirable, until the tide of human nature inevitably comes in. Fear, however, is a different matter entirely. Fear is not an emotional transaction. It is a primal calculation of risk. It is maintained by a dread of punishment, a consequence that you and you alone control. Unlike love, Fear never fails. It is a constant, a reliable force in a world of variables. The respect born of fear is not conditional, it is absolute. This does not mean you must become a hated tyrant. This is the crucial distinction that inept leaders fail to grasp. Hatred is born when you infringe upon the core of a man's identity, his property, his family, and his honor. A prince must scrupulously avoid seizing the assets and violating the women of his subjects, for this creates a burning personal grievance that will fester into rebellion. Hatred is an active, volatile force that seeks your destruction. Fear is a cooler, more calculating emotion. Fear is the understanding of consequence. It is the knowledge that there are lines that cannot be crossed, rules that will be enforced, and an authority that will defend itself with absolute finality. Your response to disrespect is the primary tool for instilling this fear. It is not an act of rage, it is a public lesson, a spectacle of consequence. The objective is to create a respect so profound, so deeply embedded in the minds of all who witness it, that the thought of future disobedience becomes unthinkable. They do not have to love you. They do not even have to like you. But they must understand in a way that bypasses all emotion and speaks directly to their instinct for self-preservation that the cost of challenging you is unacceptably high. You are not aiming to be despised. You are aiming to be taken seriously. In a world of chaos, the certainty of your response is a form of order. This brings us to the final layer of this grand performance, the construction of your public facade. While your actions may be guided by the cold logic of fear, your reputation must be clothed in the warm glow of virtue. Every public act must be a calculated performance designed to reinforce the image you wish to project. Machiavelli lists the 5 qualities a prince must appear to have. He must seem merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious. It is not necessary to possess all these qualities in reality, he writes, but it is absolutely necessary to appear to possess them. This is not mere hypocrisy, it is the most advanced form of statecraft. The masses are incapable of understanding the harsh necessities of power. They cannot comprehend the difficult choices you must make in the silent solitude of your strategic mind. They judge by what they can see. Therefore, you must give them a spectacle of virtue to admire. Every public decree, every speech, every charitable act must be a brushstroke in the grand portrait of your benevolent rule. This public reputation is both your armor and your weapon. It is your armor because it deflects criticism and inspires popular support, making it difficult for your enemies to rally opposition against a leader so widely perceived as just. It is your weapon because it allows you to carry out necessary acts of severity while maintaining the moral high ground. When you are forced to act as the lion and destroy an opponent, your reputation allows you to frame it as a sorrowful act of justice, not a gleeful act of vengeance. You are the merciful ruler, pained by the necessity of punishing a traitor who threatened the peace and stability you have worked so hard to build. The world will see your solemn face, not your cold calculation. This is the theater of power. Your internal reality is a mind of ice. Your external performance is a heart of fire. The mastery of this duality is the art of holding the throne. You have journeyed into the cold chambers of the human soul and have grasped the tools of statecraft. You have silenced the sentimental voice within and mastered the grand theater of public perception. Now, before the final seal of this knowledge is broken, ensure you are subscribed, for the art of the masterstroke, the transfiguration of theory into immortal legacy, is reserved for those who intend to rule, not merely to witness. You have learned the grammar of power. Now you will speak the sentence that reshapes the world. The moment has arrived. The disrespect you endured was not the injury, it was the invitation. It was fortune, in her infinite and brutal wisdom, presenting you with a rare and beautiful opportunity, the chance not merely to restore order, but to ordain a new one entirely. Lesser men see a crisis as an obstacle to be overcome. The prince sees a crisis as a crucible in which a new reality can be forged. The decisive action, the masterstroke, is therefore not a reaction, but a culmination. It is the singular point in time where your preparation, your will, and your strategic insight, your virtue, intercept and master the chaotic currents of circumstance. Timing is the soul of this endeavor. To act too soon is to reveal your hand. To act too late is to be consumed by the events you failed to control. The perfect moment is one of maximum vulnerability for your opponents and maximum readiness on your part. It is the quiet before the storm, the moment of collective breath-holding where the old order has revealed its weakness, but a new one has not yet been born. In this fleeting vacuum, you must act with the devastating speed and finality of a collapsing star. This is the execution of your well-used cruelty. It is not a series of petty retaliations. It is a single sublime act of political violence that restructures the very foundations of your power. As Machiavelli ordained, for injuries ought to be done all at once, so that, being tasted less, they offend less. Benefits ought to be given little by little so that the flavor of them may last longer. The psychology of this principle is profound. A single overwhelming blow, the swift removal of rivals, the immediate dissolution of a treacherous faction, the imposition of a stark and unyielding new law, is a shock to the system. It is terrible, yes, but it is also finite. It creates a clear and unmistakable boundary between the old era of laxity and the new era of your absolute authority. The very magnitude of the act is its genius. It paralyzes opposition and inspires a deep, shuddering awe. It is a founding myth, a day of fire and judgment from which all future political history in your domain will be dated. By concentrating the pain into a single moment, you prevent the slow accumulation of resentment. The wound is cauterized. The lesson is branded onto the collective memory. Then it is over. From this point forward, all your actions can be ones of calculated benevolence. The small favors, the minor promotions, the public acts of clemency, these are the benefits given little by little. Because they are tasted against the memory of that one terrible day, their sweetness is magnified 1,000-fold. You are no longer merely a ruler. You are the merciful sovereign who has brought peace after the necessary tempest. Your generosity is not seen as weakness, but as a sign of immense strength, the magnanimity of a leader so secure in his power that he can afford to be kind. The single injury is the dark velvet upon which the diamonds of your subsequent favors will glitter most brilliantly. This is how you transform fear into a stable, reverent, and unbreakable form of respect. The masterstroke is not just an act of destruction, it is the first and most critical act of creation. But the true victory is not the event itself. The masterstroke is merely the clearing of the ground. The true measure of the prince is what he builds upon that cleared ground in the moments that follow. A common brute can win a battle, only a strategist can win the peace. Consolidation is the science of making power permanent. The instant your rivals are neutralized, the prince does not celebrate. He works. He immediately begins the construction of a new order, an edifice of institutions and loyalties that will render his position unassailable. He does not rely on the old structures that permitted the initial disrespect to occur. He demolishes them and designs new ones in their place. This means elevating a new class of men, individuals of talent but of humble origin, who owe their newfound status entirely to you. Their loyalty will be absolute, for your success is inextricably tied to their own. They are the new pillars of your state, holding up your authority not out of abstract principle, but out of ferocious self-interest. It means establishing new laws and customs that reinforce your control, weaving your authority into the very fabric of daily life until it is as natural and unquestioned as the rising of the sun. It means creating dependencies, ensuring that all significant channels of commerce, information, and influence flow through you or your loyal agents. The goal is to build a system where rebellion is not merely dangerous, but logistically impossible. The prince does not simply sit on a throne, he constructs the entire palace around it, engineering every corridor, every doorway, every line of sight to his own advantage. Your dominion is not maintained by the constant threat of force, but by the silent, omnipresent architecture of the new state you have built. And so you arrive at the ultimate philosophical truth of this journey. Power is not a moral category. It is a physical one, like gravity or fire. It is neither good nor evil. It is simply effective or ineffective. The world is a chaotic, violent, and unforgiving place, governed by the relentless currents of human ambition. The idealist drowns in this sea, clinging to the wreckage of his own noble intentions. The tyrant is eventually consumed by the hatred he creates. But the prince, the true strategist, does not try to fight the current, nor does he allow himself to be swept away by it. He studies the tides. He understands the winds. And with the force of his intellect and the courage of his will, he builds a vessel so strong that it can navigate any storm, imposing his own direction on the chaos of the ocean. The ultimate power is the ability to see the world as it truly is, in all its brutal splendor, and to have the audacity to act on that vision. It is the capacity to forge order from chaos, stability from conflict, and an enduring legacy from the fleeting moments of human folly. This is the final lesson. You do not ask for a throne. You do not inherit a throne. You build one, stone by cold, hard stone, until it stands as a monument to a will that refused to break.